my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and wide.
Hi, this is Marjohn Love, and this is Marjohn's Musings. And today's show, I thought I would share my dolls with you. We've had kind of a rough ride in November. It took me a couple of days after the election to kind of get a grip. I don't think I was the only one. My friend Jimmy Capella and I bet on the election, and now I owe him. He has not decided his prize yet. And last time when I spoke to you, I told you Halloween hadn't happened, but now it has, and all it is a sweet memory. I didn't buy a lot of candy this year. As I've shared with you in the past, I have type 2 diabetes. So what I got myself, since the best part of Easter was always the black jelly beans, and the best part of Halloween was always the chocolate. But once I start eating chocolate, I start craving chocolate. So this year I got myself a little tin of Les Anis de Favigny from France. And what they are is they're these little licorice balls. And if I have one of those, it does not affect my blood sugar. I invited y'all to come down to my place on the Bearskin Neck and write with me for November. You know, we talked about the fact that NaNoWriMo hosts a writing contest every November, 50,000 words in 30 days. And this year, they have a cool logo. Every year they come up with new graphics. And this year it's a rocket. And I happen to have a computer bag that has a rocket on it. And I brought that to the NaNoWriMo kickoff party. Satin, who's actually gotten her book published with a real publisher, not like I did with the Kindle, you know, self-publishing direct, which was really disappointing. You know, the book's been up since Andrew's birthday, so the entire month of September and then October, and here we are on the 18th of November, and it's sold 7 copies. It's sort of like it got pocket vetoed. It was not promoted. In order to get promoted on Kindle, you have to either choose them as your one and only publisher, which, you know, if a big publishing house wants to pick up your book and give you royalties and commission and whatever, you can't accept that. Or you have to pay them to publicize your book. So unless someone watched the show or knew me personally from my social life or the groups I belong to or my church, then they don't know the book is out there. I mean, if you type in Marjohn Love, you can find Saigon's Deadly Game, but if you don't remember the title, Saigon's Deadly Game, and you don't know that Marjohn's last name is Love, you may not find me. I found that kind of sad and disturbing. And like I told you, I submitted the book to Audible, hoping to do a dual release of the long, intricate text, but also me as a storyteller telling the story. So like I told you, a friend of mine wanted a copy of Saigon's Deadly Game, but she doesn't have a Kindle. She uses a Nook, which is the electronic reader from Barnes & Noble. So I went ahead and I put Saigon's Deadly Game on Nook. Guess what? I told her that, and there are 0 sales. I'm a little grumpy with her right at the moment. But people try to be kind, you know, they try to be nice. If they don't like something, they don't usually tell you to your face. That's sort of an issue sometimes. When I was a little girl, we were told, never discuss religion or politics. Well, not discussing religion, a whole lot of people with concerns about their parish churches or their Jewish congregations or their mosque or their temple didn't discuss the fact that people were leaving the established religions. If you look on Sunday morning at the mall parking lot, it's hard to find a parking space. And yet, many of our time-honored institutions, there are very few people attending services. There was a time here in Rockport where the Catholic Church could not find a priest. They have one now, but I think they have to share him. I think I'm talking about religion today because a lot of people who have been stunned by the election are asking one another, at least on Facebook and Twitter and such, to forgive and forget and let's all love one another. I've shown you this mug before. It's a quote from Thessalonians 5:17, pray without ceasing. And on the front it says, prayer changes everything. I think prayer is vital. But I've also shared with you that the Dalai Lama produced a deck of cards in which one of the cards says, things don't change through prayer or meditation. They change through action. I'm wondering what sort of action we should take, because I think watching the Republicans stonewall and be spiteful for 8 years was very hurtful. I think the Democrats in America need to say, okay, you won the House, you won the Senate, you have control of the Supreme Court, you have most of the governorships, what do you want to do? And then take each proposal one at a time. Look at it very carefully. Will it help the ecology? Will it help the economy? Will it help world trade and world security? If it's a good bill, don't be spiteful. Pass it. The Republicans won by a landslide in the Electoral College. It's a little disturbing that Hillary and the Democrats won by a tiny margin in the popular vote. Someone sent me a chart on Facebook, and it said that 49% of the population did not vote. And then someone else sent me a thing that said that there was the largest voter turnout in decades. I wasn't sure who to believe. I know that in America today, a lot of our young people no longer turn on Fox News or CNN. If they want to hear the news, they go to The Daily Show, which is a rather irreverent, sometimes raunchy comedy show. I laugh at it sometimes, but sometimes it's startling. I wonder if their fact checker is better than the news on some of the more established stations. It's a little strange. You know, I thought of the election like these two dolls I have. I think of them as sister dolls. The one is standing and can't sit, and the other is sitting and can't stand. I think the Republicans need to sit down to the negotiating table in good faith and that the Democrats need to be able to stand up for those values and truths that they believe in. Now, you all know that I am a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, and I lean very liberal and a bit towards socialism. I think that the common good is more important than the freedom to be greedy through capitalism. I think our great country became great as a capitalist nation because it was counterbalanced by the compassion and ethics of the major religions. But a group of people without a moral compass, because they never think of spiritual matters, who are driven by greed and momentary gain, don't think of the ecology for the future of their grandchildren. I was very disappointed. You know, I sat down on the bearskin neck for 4 hours for 5 days, which is 20 hours. I invested 20 hours to host people to come write, and none of you came to write with me. And I mentioned this to the ladies at my coffee group, and they said, well, people who watch television probably don't read and they probably don't write. I thought, that has to be one of the strangest overgeneralizations I ever heard. I'm sure some of you that watch this show are avid readers. I mean, there's no bling, there's no CGI, there's no bells and whistles on this show like you see on some of the shows aimed at adults on the Disney Channel, or, you know, the battling chefs or whatever. I don't have big music and splashy 3D graphics. I only have the sincerity of my heart, sort of like Bernie Sanders. You know, I can only speak my truth as quietly and as clearly as I know how. There is no frou-frou on Marjohn's Musings. It's just me talking about things that I have related to one another in my mind. So I brought in a doll that I found very interesting. He's supposed to be Tarzan. He has so many weapons, he can't even carry them all. I thought about that because if someone lives in a state of rage, which the Buddhists believe is a mental affliction, it's very hard for them to calm down and center. The monks try to teach people like that how to empty their mind, open their heart, feel the pain that caused the anger, because anger is not a primary emotion. Anger is a secondary emotion. Anger comes basically from two sources: threat and hurt. The worst rage comes from fear. The most lasting anger and resentment comes from feeling wounded. I looked at the TV and the news feeds on the internet, and I saw a whole lot of young women who thought they might actually have a woman president, weeping. Having voted for Mondale and been absolutely stunned when Richard Milhouse Nixon won every state in the Union but Massachusetts, which is where I happen to live. I was on campus at BU. I thought, Mondale's got to win. Everybody loves him. And of course it didn't happen. And I was stunned. But it wasn't a heartfelt loss like when Bobby Kennedy was shot and I wept for days. It was just a disappointment that made me a bit cynical. I didn't vote. for the next few elections. And it made me realize something interesting. You know, we think that we have a two-party system. We need to wake up and smell the coffee. We have a three-party system. And the third party is the media, the news. The news selectively ignored viable, intelligent, experienced candidates who were a bit boring in favor of the flamboyant, unpredictable, and therefore interesting candidate. And so people heard a whole lot more about Donald Trump than some of the more qualified people running for office, because the editors at the television stations promoted Donald Trump rather than people who were more qualified but less titillating. Their goal was capital. In order to run any television station, you need an influx of money, or you wind up going off the air. You have to have sponsors, whether those are people who donate, like, you know, on NPR or some of the public radio and WGBH. Those people have sponsors, corporate sponsors and philanthropists who help them with financial donations. K-Band TV would not exist. The channel that I'm speaking to you from would not exist without your contributions. If you are so inclined to maintain freedom of speech on K-Band, donate money or join us. The membership fee is very modest. If you disagree with what I'm saying to you, come on and make a show of your own. Voice your own opinions. I'm sure the staff here would welcome people to come in and make their own shows. I think it's vital that local stations remain on the air. This station does not have huge corporate sponsors like General Motors or Toyota. But then again, they don't have to edit their programming to satisfy those sponsors. I mentioned to you last time The Attention Merchants by Tim Wu. It's a very interesting read, but it's also available as an audiobook. I found a software program to fix some of the problems on my Saigon's Deadly Game audiobook. It's on sale right now. Instead of $1,200 something, it's only like close to $900. And it's like, I wrote them a note over the email. I said, "Are you having a Christmas sale?" We'll see what they say. If you know people that are angry or hurting because of the election, and like my friend Jimmy Capella, you voted the other way, be the big person. Don't gloat. Don't rub their face in it. They feel bad enough already. I brought these dolls because we're heading into the holiday season. You know, we haven't yet, at the time of this filming, done Thanksgiving, you know, with all the pumpkin things. During the election, I sat there and made this. I have no idea what it is. I just needed to do something with my hands as one state after another went red. So today, I am the lady in red. Now, I am not the romantic lady in red, and I'm not the lady in red in the whodunits, you know, like the lady in red who done it. You know, I didn't done it. But I'm a Democratic girl living in a Republican world, and I'm not feeling all that secure. I got an email purportedly from Apple, I'm warning you because you may get one too, asking me for my user ID and my password and my sign-in. It began, "Dear customer." I contacted Apple immediately and said, "I think I've been hit with a scam." The helpful people there were online within 60 seconds, and within 3 minutes they had me send them a screenshot of this scam. And they said, "Yes, you're right. It is a scam. They're trying to get into your Apple account where I have money and maybe steal my money, where they could get my information, where they might be able to log into my computer." Anytime you see something that says, "Dear customer," they're either selling something to you or they're phishing. PH, phishing. They're trying to get your information. I must get 10 or 12 phone calls each and every week, sometimes that many in a day, of, "Hi, this is Veronica. There's a problem with your credit card account." Now, most people are savvy enough to understand that that's not true. They want your numbers. Why? Because the world economy is no longer based on script. It's no longer based on paper money. And we've talked about that at great length in earlier episodes. If you're interested, go on capebandtv.org and look up some of the shows that were early on about the fact that money is changing. It's ones and zeros. You can pay a bill with your cell phone. You can pick up your cell phone and pay a bill. You no longer need currency. I was at my ladies' group and one of the women was upset because the little waitress didn't give her exact change. And when she confronted the girl, she said, "Well, I never carry change. You just round up or down." And later on that week, I was somewhere else and a police officer said, "Well, the kids don't carry money. They don't carry change." I thought, interesting. And when you put this in your purse with its glass screen, if you had change in there with it, you'd scratch up the glass screen. And change is heavy. And even though inflation is now a 4-letter word one is not supposed to say, change doesn't buy much anymore. But as a lady in red, I think way back in the day I told you that I keep this red crayon because my husband for my birthday one year gave me a card that said, "After making Kevin give her the last red crayon, Marcia realized she was going to enjoy life as a femme fatale." He scratched out Marcia. He put in Marjohn. That must be 10 years ago. I still kept the crayon. So my dolls. Why do I have all these dolls? Well, there was a period of time when dolls were either bisqueware or they were fired in a kiln and they were porcelain dolls. And then they became composite dolls. And then they became plastic dolls. This is only about a third of my collection. My husband got to the point that he said to me, "If you bring one more doll into this house, I'm moving out." And so like an idiot, I took my $200 and $300 collector dolls and I gave them to our church. And they sold them for $5 and $10 a piece as if they were toys. And I thought, you know, this is one of my more stupid moves. But there's a great deal of American history and world history connected with dolls. You know, we think of dolls as toys, but prior to the turn of the century, dolls went into doll houses. Yes, there was the baby doll the little girl held, but she did that because her mother taught her parenting skills. This is how you dress a baby. This is how you wash a baby. This is where the baby should sleep. Oh, we should make a bottle for the baby. This is what we put into the baby's bottle. It was a teaching tool, and the doll houses were typically made by a father to teach his son carpentry, joinery, how to split shake, how to build a case of stairs using balsa wood, but the concept of rise and run and consistency of a pattern and right angles and tongue and grooving, all that was taught to the boy. And later, as the country progressed technologically, how to put in wiring for the little tiny light bulbs, how to hang wallpaper, how to lay down carpeting. Doll houses were a teaching tool. And little boys and little girls learned about family dynamics, playing with the dolls. What did the mommy say? What did the daddy say? Did they say the proper things to each other and their children? And because living areas were small and parents monitored their children, a mother or a father would be listening and intervene. No, the dolls don't hit each other. No, a daddy doll would not say that to a mommy doll. No, you never throw the baby down the stairs. I don't know that children, playing computer games, learn the same values. Most of the games I've seen are bang bang shoot 'em ups. And unlike in real life where you have one precious life, and you need to hold on to that, dedicate it to whatever higher power you believe in, and use it wisely, because believe me, young ones, it goes by fast. Some of these dolls are faded, but I remember when I used them with little children that I took care of as an occupational therapist. Some of the dolls teach kind of odd concepts to our children. There's a beautiful one there by Elle. She's dressed gorgeous, and she has a trunk, and she has a traveling makeup case, and she's in skin-tight red leather pants and a one-sided halter black leather top and a rare exotic animal skin coat with the gorgeously coiffed hair and the bird feather hat decorated with pearls from oysters. She's the epitome of conspicuous consumption. That's not to say she isn't beautiful. Our First Lady is going to be quite beautiful. But looking at internet web posts of photographs of the inside of Donald Trump's house, I'm kind of like gobsmacked. How did the working class poor who've lost their farms and their factories, the Republicans betrayed them and sold their farms to Monsanto through the intentional crashing of the savings and loans. And we've talked about that before. I lived in Nebraska at the time, and our minister had to go out on 7 different suicide calls, which were later successful, and 11 suicide calls, which were not, for men who lost their home and their livelihood because of 6 more payments on a tractor, or 12 more payments on a pickup truck, or 15 more payments on a combine. And they lost everything. That was what was under investigation in the World Trade Towers when they were bombed. A friend of mine sent me a Facebook thing. that had a woman looking like she crawled through the desert after like a car crash or a plane crash, and she's dying of thirst, all dirty and torn up, and she's going, "News! I need genuine ethical news." Well, the news media sure proved their power. Now I think they need to take a really hard look at themselves and refine their moral core to present a balanced presentation of the truth. You know, Donald Trump says he does not believe in global warming. As I sat down on the bearskin neck, waiting for y'all to come right with me, I knew one of the days you weren't going to come because it was pouring. I mean, pouring rain. And as I left in the evening, I got soaked just going to the end to my car where all the meters were bagged, so you wouldn't have even had to pay parking. And the next day was the supermoon. Astrologically, the moon comes very close to the earth a few times every so many years. I don't know the exact measurements and statistics, but you can look it up online. It's a rare event, but not all that rare, and what it does is it changes the tides. Those of you in low-lying areas here in Massachusetts are aware that it changes the tides. And since I'm on a jetty out into the Atlantic Ocean, I went down to check on my place. And there were waves lapping at the pilings under the room where I have my healing center. And I looked out at the stone wall that holds motif number 1. And from where I stood, it looked like the water was this far from the top of the jetty. That within a few feet, not meters, feet, motif number 1 would have gone awash. And this was on a calm day with no wind and no storm. And I was thinking, thank you, God, because if there had been a storm and a wind, there would have been storm surge and there would have been wind waves, and we might have lost the buildings on the bearskin neck. Now, Donald Trump inherited his money. So he's not a self-made man who gained his wealth through his wit and intelligence and savvy. He is a powerful negotiator, and he's a dynamic speaker who is capable of great charisma for the people who enjoy the type of rhetoric he delves into. I hope he's intelligent enough that he can absorb information that's in direct conflict to his current beliefs. There was an old joke back in the 80s, don't confuse me with the facts. Right at the moment, with a furious man becoming commander-in-chief of an arsenal that could set off global thermonuclear war. Maybe that's not so funny. But happier things happened for me in November. I went to the NaNoWriMo kickoff party, and I didn't bring the entire basket, but our NaNoWriMo headquarters here in the North Shore of Massachusetts is called the Rhino Shores, and they had their kickoff party, and I won a pasta dinner with red, white, and blue pasta because the election hadn't happened yet, And Lynn Favreau's lovely husband, who's a graphic designer, makes our graphic designs. And our mascot is a stuffed rhinoceros, because our little acronym for our group is Rhino Shores, Writers of the North Shore. And since the election blitzed all other concerns for the final few months, Lynn's husband made us Rhino Shores, and he dressed in costume because it was very close to Halloween. And he was in a black suit and a red and blue tie, and he had his little ear thing, and he was CIA. And here this gentle, sweet-natured man who I normally see in blue jeans is dressed in this black suit, and he's doing the sort of the Queen's Guard, look straight ahead, except he was CIA, so he was furtive, and he kept peeking in at us through the windows and then talking into his shoulder. He made me like nervous. I was like, oh my God. And I finally said to Lynn, who is that? And she says, that's my husband, you idiot, you know. And it was sort of like, oh, okay. So I brought them a soup, almost that color. It was carrot, ginger, and cashew soup. You know, we're coming up on Thanksgiving. I bought this plate last year and I showed it to you then, but I pulled it out this year. It says, not what we say about our blessings, but how we use them is the true measure of our thanksgiving. And it's by W.T. Purkise. I don't even want to try to pronounce that. I don't like it when people butcher my name. I have been called all sorts of things over the years. People look at the spelling of my name and they haven't got a clue. My name is Marjohn. I'm named after a French suffragette who brought the vote to the women of the Omar Emirates. My mother was all excited because a woman became Queen of England. And so when I was born, she named me for this French suffragette. But my father was military and had served in World War II, and so she spelled my name Mar, which she said was for herself, Margaret, and John, which is how she spelled my name, for my daddy, and glued them together, and he accepted that. And it was the women of the family's secret for years that I was named for a suffragette who wanted to empower women. They say the pen is mightier than the sword. I found out something interesting on the bearskin neck. I have an Apple laptop. It has both Microsoft Office for Apple. Microsoft is a Windows platform dedicated group, but they give a nod to Apple and they make a dumbed down version of Microsoft Office. All I use is Word, so I have Word. And when I got the new Apple one, it said that you could no longer use Dragon Naturally Speaking. That was the dictation program I had loved and enjoyed for years. It was developed right here in Massachusetts. And from now on, if you wanted to use Microsoft Word, they would send your dictation out to be transcribed and send it back. Now that's absolute BS. There's a computer software program that does the transcription. They sent it out, recorded it, and sent it back. And I found out on the bearskin neck, because I didn't bother to put in an internet connection for a healing center where I turn all electronic appliances except for the chromotherapy lights off to make the space as radiation free as possible, to practice Reiki, the application of biomagnetic radiation the stuff that shows up on your echocardiogram, your electrocardiogram, your EEG, your EMG, that vital life force can be channeled through the palms of the hand, also through the soles of the feet. Some martial artists will be aware that you can channel human energy. You create an energy field. And there is photographic capability with specialized cameras that I saw down at the Franklin Institute, where you can stand and your aura shows up. They've actually been able to photograph the aura. And there are people who just refuse to believe that there is an aura. There's an aura. The MRI takes all the molecules of your body, reorients the little magnets in your hemoglobin, and takes a photo of you. And then afterwards you feel awed and disoriented as the little magnets in your body reorient to their normal orientation. Think of a compass needle pointing either to true north or the local broadcast tower, or your child's magnet. That magnetic force can hurt people. Children near huge transformers for electric power have a higher incidence of cancer than children who live in more moderate areas, and much higher than children who live in rural areas away from electromagnetic radiation. You know, and I think, you know, with all the cell phones and Bluetooth keyboards and Bluetooth this and Bluetooth that, that we are bombarding ourselves with massive amounts of radiation, very tiny, tiny, non-hurtful increments at a time. But if you get the TD Bank Stadium full of computers and cell phones, and you measure the radiation there, I think you might find it was something to kind of pay attention to. I try to give you something uplifting in every show. You know, we were talking about the rains and the supermoon tide. Today is November 18th. And the tag word, you know, hashtag word for the daily word for that day is refresh. Spirit within refreshes and strengthens me. Water is nature's refreshment, providing nourishment for all life on the planet. Parched animals, plants, and ground hurriedly drink when it rains, finding renewed energy and strength. On hot days, animals seek refuge in pools of water. Oceans and rivers and waterfalls refresh the human spirit as they inspire those who visit them. The greatest source of refreshment for my soul is my connection with God. I release doubts or habits that limit my thinking and open my mind and heart to receive divine guidance. There's this old Jewish expression my girlfriend Naomi used to say, from your mouth to God's ear. I'm looking at that last one. I release doubts or habits that limit my thinking and open my mind and heart to receive divine guidance. And I think from daily word to the president-elect, I hope, because this man may be able to reverse the hideous, terrifying consequences of the oxymoron named Patriot Act, which allowed spying on every individual in our country, their phone, their bank account, their emails, their contact lists, all their friends, families, relations, business partners, the GPS in their car, which not only shows you where to go, it tracks your speed. You know, 1984 was written as a caution. But I think it was an instance of prophecy. I think this image of televisions which watched you was profound for the time in which it was written. Perhaps Donald Trump, with his charisma and personal power, because the man does have that, perhaps he can take this totalitarian threat and modulate it. I don't think he's going to be able to get rid of it all. I mean, I think the National Security Agency is here to stay, but with his fear of all Muslims, and I'll bet hard cash that 99% or more of Muslims are normal human beings who love Allah the same way that born-again Christians love Jesus. You know, when I was young, back in the late 50s and early 60s, they used to refer to the nefarious element in the culture as the 1%ers. That 99% of the populace was God-fearing, law-abiding citizens. You know that little ring I told you about last time that says believe? Inside it has a quote, "All things are possible," which comes from a larger quote, "With God, all things are possible." I think in the new millennia, we tend to hang on to this idea that God is loving and benevolent, which most assuredly God is. I think we've lost sight of the fact that through pestilence, drought, flooding, tornadoes, hurricanes, flash fires, lightning, earthquakes, tsunamis, with God, all things are possible. Perhaps we can align ourselves with whatever we individually perceive God to be and support the institutions that closely relate to what we believe, because it's not going to be a perfect fit. But we need to be able to sit down and compromise and stand up for what we believe in. And me, not being able to use my dictation on the bearskin neck because nobody could record it because I wasn't connected to the web, I picked up my sword and my NaNoWriMo dedicated book. And I hand wrote 30,000 words. We'll see if the pen is mightier than the sword. Type up a letter to your editor. Handwrite a love letter to a family member and send it snail mail, where it won't be read by anybody but the recipient. Send out a real Christmas card, not a little e-card. Don't Facebook your dear friends and family, "Happy birthday." Pick up a pen and write. Write what you're afraid of. Write what you hope for. Write down your dearest wishes and share them with the people in power who might be able to make that happen. My friend David sent me a thing that said, the problem with American two-party system is that conservatives think liberals are stupid. How are they going to pay for the programs? And liberals, who want to take care of women, children, elderly, the needy, disabled veterans, perceive greedy, selfish conservatives as evil. Bernie and I have told you, money is not what you think it is. It's only a system of barter. And we who do the work are the real value. You could burn $120 bills and nothing of genuine value would disappear from the face of the earth except some poor dead tree. We could teach our children how to produce beautiful goods and services once more. We could restore our infrastructure, but we'd have to have the community mind to do it and be willing to pay the taxes to employ the workers who then pay taxes, which is how FDR took us from the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl into the best prosperity we ever knew. It wasn't the U.S. military complex and World War II that brought us prosperity. That killed off some of our most promising citizens and prevented them from ever having children. What saved the country was forward thinking, to employ the talents of the people to bring forth the country. Because a working person pays taxes that feed back in. And an unemployed person suffers and might even commit suicide or kill themselves and their entire family out of desperation. Don't be silent these next 4 years. Pick up your pen. This is Marjohn, and this has been Marjohn's Musings.